as I shared this word, just the Spirit of God filled this room, and the presence was so strong. And suddenly, I saw not just the sign flashing on the back wall. I began to see like a movie. It was like the entire back wall of the church became a movie screen. It was like I was in a movie theater. And I told the people, I said, I'm having a vision. And I started narrating what I was seeing. I expected this to last for a minute or two, but it lasted for probably 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. And this was obviously supernatural and different. I've never had anything else like this. But I just began to narrate what I was seeing. For this 40, 45 minutes, you could hear a pin drop in the room. People were just captivated, their eyes closed, listening. And I was relating what I was seeing. And what he showed me was what this revival would look like, this blowing of the breath, again, intensely. I saw the fire of God coming to America. It wasn't the fire of judgment. It was the fire of revival. But what he highlighted and showed me specifically was this fire coming to the youth of our nation, the young people, campuses, college campuses, high school campuses. The fires of revival began to burn, and he literally showed me campuses where this was happening. And I said, I see it on such and such. And I named the university, and I would talk about what I was seeing. And then I said, I see it on this campus. And I talked about what I was seeing. And then I realized this is going to the nation. I don't want to keep mentioning one or two and people think it's only that one, because what I saw was this was springing up everywhere. And what I saw was unlike anything I'd ever seen. This, I described it at one point in this vision as a violent love. It was coming with such intensity. God said, I am coming to save this generation, and nothing is going to stop me. It was so much passion from God, so much intensity, that I turned to the speakers and I turned to those in the room at one point and I said, nothing is going to stop this. Nothing can stop it. And so as this broke out, obviously signs and wonders began to take place. And the students would gather into rooms, and they would begin to talk about what happened. And it grew in its intensity. And the next thing that was happening was the size of the groups gathering grew, and there were thousands of kids, young people, all across America gathering, talking about Jesus. Completely grassroots, completely spontaneous, led by no person, controlled by no person, planned by no person. God just began to hover over these universities. There would be a room of 1,000 of these young people in an auditorium, and God would start moving. There was no one in charge. There was no one up preaching. Someone would begin to scream in the back that they were healed of this disease or that disease, or their eyes were healed. And over here, someone else would do it, and someone else would do it over here. And kids would begin to get saved. They didn't know much. They would just start crying out to Jesus, and Jesus was saving them. I saw this moving across the country. I saw people trying to stop it. Some of the administrators in the universities, I saw gatherings of leaders, those in charge, saying, we have to get these kids to go back to class, because they didn't want to go to class. Sporting events were canceled. Classes were canceled. Not because the sport events are bad, but because they didn't want to do anything else. This was so powerful, they wanted to get together and talk about what was happening. And as the administrators would walk into these auditoriums to try and stop them, power of God would be so strong, they would just fall under the power of God, and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't stop it. And so this just began to take place. I saw mass deliverances. I've never seen anything like this yet. It rocked my theology, because no one was speaking. They were just singing maybe a chorus or a song that they knew. They didn't know a lot. Amazing Grace, perhaps. And the Spirit of God would begin to hover in the room, and students would begin to be delivered from addictions, bondages, demonic strongholds in their life. No one touching them. No one saying this is about to happen. It was like when Jesus would go into the synagogue and the demons could not stand his presence and they would begin to scream and shout, "Leave us alone, leave us alone." Well, the presence of God came into these rooms with such intensity that the demons simply could not stay. I saw these kids being interviewed. They were asked, "What is happening? Explain this to us." They had no answer. They stopped doing drugs. They stopped some of the perverted or sinful lifestyles that they were involved in. I saw them being interviewed saying, "Why did you stop this? Why aren't you doing these things anymore?" And the student simply said, "I don't know. I just don't want to do it. I love Jesus. I want to please him. Something in me tells me it's wrong. I don't want to do this." It became a holiness movement, but it was not like any holiness movement we've ever seen in a revival. No one was preaching it to them. No one was telling them how to live. Their hearts were simply changing, and they wanted to please him. I saw this go across the nation. It was intense. It was powerful. It was unstoppable. And the other thing I saw was it was so raw. These kids that, it's not like they changed the way they looked, dressed, acted. They didn't look like they were going to church. They didn't change their attire. They just showed up as they were, and God began to move. And then they wanted more of him. And what I saw also was they really didn't want religion. They really didn't want our forms. They didn't want somebody to preach at them. They wanted to know about Jesus. They wanted a relationship with him, but they didn't want religious form. They wanted something different. And they came with their problems. They came with their past. They came with their, frankly, they came with mates and people that they shouldn't have been with. But they wanted this Jesus. And I found myself looking at all of this thinking, because of the sheer volume, because this was thousands, tens of thousands of young people were being saved around the nation, I found myself thinking, what do we do with this? How do we steward this? It was coming so quickly. How do we teach them? They want to know God, but they don't want our religion. And they've been taught that they can do this, they can do that. How do we teach them without trying to put them in a form and a mold that they know nothing about and don't want? How do we teach them relationship without religion? And I finally, as I was watching this, 20, 30 minutes into it, just relating what I was seeing, I turned to the leaders on the platform, and I was so serious when I said this. I said, this is going to be incredibly difficult to steward. It will be like the book of Acts. They just had to learn on the fly. It will be like Joshua, who was told, you've never been this way before. The only way you can do this is to follow the cloud, follow me, follow the ark, because you've not been this way before. And what we're about to experience, we don't have a formula for. We don't have a pattern for. Thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands, I believe eventually hundreds of thousands and millions of young people in America are coming to Jesus. We're going to need to be ready to take them into his presence and allow Holy Spirit to shape them, allow Holy Spirit to teach them, to show them what he wants, who he is. And so just to summarize it, I saw incredible power, incredible fire, the fire of revival, incredible signs and wonders, incredible passion, love for God, worship, spontaneous outbreakings of Holy Spirit until the entire nation was on fire with the fires of revival.